now I will try to save some money for you. Have you ever had that feeling when you see a palette and your heart starts beating faster and you don't even notice how similar it is to the previous palette you bought? I already own these both, guys, so you don't have to. Hi, what's up? My name is Alina and welcome to Wonderly Beauty. We can all agree that Huda is an incredible businesswoman, and I personally would love to own every single product she releases. Sustainability? Not today. Both of these palettes are absolute hits and were a hot topic on the internet for quite a long time. But today, we will compare these two and choose only one. So for the first look, I'm gonna use Huda Beauty New Nude palette. And I think I'm going to create quite a typical look for this palette. So it's definitely going to be something pinkish, maybe with a little bit of purple and some of these stunning metallic shades. So I'm going to take a big fluffy brush and go into the shade Secret. To be honest, it's one of my absolute favorite shades in this palette. It's beautiful and great for everyday use. However, in the palette, it looks quite neutral, brownish in a way, but on the lid, it's definitely pink. Not crazy bright pink, but definitely something like dusty rose, and it looks nothing like what we see in the palette. It blends quite easily, no complaints about that, but I just wish the color was the same as it is in the palette. I'm gonna take a smaller brush and go into the shade Teddy to create a beautiful gradient. And put it in the crease. I'm going to take a smaller synthetic brush by Real Techniques and go into the shade Raw. Tap the excess off as usual. And focus on the outer corner of the eye. Drag it a little bit into the crease. This is actually already really pretty. So my next step will be adding a little bit of the color Spanked. Going with the same brush. Not big deal. And again, I'm gonna focus on my outer corner. Now I'm going to focus on my lower eyelid and go into the shade Secret again. And it's going to be my basic color for my lower eyelid. Now I'm going again into the shade Raw. I'm gonna skip the shade Teddy this time and put it closer to my lashes. Next, I'm taking a smaller brush and going into the shade Spanked. And focusing on the outer corner. Next, I'm going to use 3 of the metallic shades. I'm going to start with the shade Fantasy here. And Huda herself recommends applying her glitters and her metallic shades with a finger, so I do that. I don't like working with metallic shades with a brush. Next, I'm going to apply the shade Daydream, again with my finger, and it's gonna be in the center of the eye. And as for the third shade, it's going to be this beautiful gold pink shade Crave. Again, and with my finger, My main issue with red and pink eyeshadows is that sometimes they make my eyes look a little sick, or as if I spend the whole night crying in my bed. So in order to avoid that effect, I'm gonna apply a little bit of eye pencil by Maybelline in the color dark brown. I don't want a very dramatic look, so I'm going to take brown instead of black. So now I'm gonna do my right eye and I'll be right back. So now I'm going to share my final thoughts on this palette. So for $65, you get 17 eyeshadows, not 18, because of this concealer, which in my opinion is completely useless. You do get quite a lot of diversity in this palette in terms of different textures. We have our classic mattes, beautiful metallics, and 2 glitters. They do perform quite well without any glitter base under them, so I have absolutely no problem using them. Last year, so many dupes for this palette emerged from Makeup Revolution or Revolution Pro. There are some palettes from Chinese brands like You Can Be. If you're not into buying dupes and you actually want a product from Huda Beauty, there are already dupes that Huda herself created for this palette. These dupes are nude obsessions in 3 different color ranges: light, medium, and deep. So not only you can replace the whole palette with only one 9-pan palette, but also you get a diversity in shades and depth. If you're a Snow White like me, I would suggest getting a light one, and it replaces a half of this palette. Here are some more looks that I have created with this palette. And for the final look in this video, I'm gonna use the Mercury Retrograde palette and create a look just with these eyeshadows. I'm gonna take a fluffy brush and go into the shade Crush. And I'm gonna use it as my transition shade. And I already have my eyeshadow base on my eyelid. I should say it's a very nice transitional shade. It blends beautifully into my skin, as I'm quite a fair girl. I should say it's not too light, not too dark, just great. With the Real Techniques brush, I'm gonna go into the shade Off Balance. And focus on my crease. Next, I'm going to take the shade Hot Mess and apply it into the outer corner of the eye. With a tiny brush, I'm going into the shade Vortex, and now I'm gonna try to make it work. I'm just gonna focus on one tiny spot, the outer corner of the eye. I won't blend it, I will just apply it lightly where I want it to be the darkest. In a teeny tiny little spot of the eye, the eyeshadow works, but once you try blending it into the crease or dragging it higher, forget about it, it doesn't work. So next I'm gonna take another small brush and repeat the same color scheme on my lower eyelid. Next, with my finger, I'm going to take the shade Ultraviolet and apply it on the outer corner of the eye. I'm going to take the shade Nebula, this beautiful bluish, purplish glitter, again with my finger, and apply it on the center of the eye. and it's literally the most beautiful shimmer I've ever had. It's just fantastic. The shade, the brightness, it's stunning. Last but not least, I'm going to take the shade Cosmic, this beautiful cool toned pink that also has a little bit of blue in it, and apply it on the inner corner of the eye. So this is the finished look, and I'm ready to share my thoughts on this babe. And like other big Huda Beauty palettes, this one is $67 instead of $65. And I guess I know why, because this time the packaging is made of plastic. Again, we get 18 shades, thank God, without any concealer this time. In terms of versatility, this palette has a great range of colors. We have our warm toned oranges, we have our cool toned pinks and purples. There are also 3 different shades of gold, different pinks, we have our purples, and we have our greens. And in my opinion, this is what makes this palette stand out compared to Nude, where you get basically only pinks and purples. However, there are 2 shades that I'm not satisfied with. First of all, the shade Vortex, the darkest shade in this palette, it just simply does not work as great as I would like it to. It does not blend that well, and it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a pro, still it's gonna be quite a challenge to work with the shade. The other shade I'm not that happy with is this shade Supermoon. In the swatch it looks really beautiful, however on the eye it doesn't always work that great. Sometimes it gets really flaky when you try to apply it with your finger, and with the brush it simply does not work at all. If we forget about the hideous shade Vortex, the rest of the matte colors work great with each other, and I have nothing bad to say about them. However, the first thing we see when we look at this palette is these beautiful metallics and glitters. And this is the reason why everyone's so attracted to this palette. And again, Huda has released some alternatives to this big palette. If you have a look at her mini pastel obsessions, you'll see that there are quite a lot of similar shades with this palette. So do we really need to get this big palette if we just want that row of beautiful metallics? Again, I don't think so. You can pick one of those palettes and be happy with that. Or if you're just interested in Huda's glitters and metallics, make sure to check out Gemstone Obsessions that only contains shimmery shades. With this palette, you definitely get a really wide range of different looks you can get. And here are some of the looks that I created with this palette. I was so close to giving this palette 10 out of 10, but I cannot, just because this darkest shade Vortex, it's terrible. I'm really disappointed with it, and that's the only dark shade. So if you really want to go for a dramatic dark look, it's not gonna be possible with this palette, unfortunately. These beautiful metallics don't always work perfectly fine when you apply them on the bare eyelid. If you really want to get that pop of color that will be bright, vibrant, and bold, you need to consider putting them on the black base. And in this case, they're gonna work perfectly with black creamy base. However, by themselves, they don't always work that well, as they get a little transparent. If you have a close look at both of these palettes, you will see that they're actually very similar. There's almost nothing in Nude that you won't find in your Mercury Retrograde palette. Even though Mercury Retrograde is not the easiest palette to work with, it offers much more. You can also find a lot of alternatives within the brand Huda Beauty or outside the brand. Of course, I'm super happy to own both of these palettes. However, I find myself using Mercury Retrograde much more often. So that's pretty much it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video interesting and helpful, please leave a comment, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell. I would really appreciate that. Again, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye!